that came from the breakdowns of old disco records. So he would grab 2 copies of the same vinyl record and he would play the breakdown on one side of the deck, and he would swap to the other, play the breakdown again, and then swap back, rewind the vinyl record, play back, and that way he would extend the break. And this was what became known as house music, based on what Frankie Knuckles was playing at the mythical club in Chicago called The Warehouse. So that's where it got the name. And then, due to the big reception it had and the improvements in technology, people started actually making house records. We went a little bit through the history of some of the most emblematic house tracks in the beginning. And today we're going to go through, we're going to continue where we left off yesterday. And hold on, I need to fix something here on my screen. We're going to continue where we left off yesterday, and we're going to discuss a little bit of what the genres are like within house music. So, the last thing we talked about yesterday was the origins of house music in Detroit, and now we're going to cover a little bit of the inception of the house music movement in the UK. So house spread fast in the Netherlands, Germany, South Africa, France, and especially Italy adopted and adapted it to different degrees. But nowhere did it land as hard as Britain. Of course, most people will associate house music in the UK with the acid house revolution, and we're going to cover what acid house is and what the acid sound actually is. The acid house revolution of 1988. DJs and producers like Paul Oakenfold, Nick Holloway, Danny Rampling, Lisa Loud, Andrew Weatherall, Farley, Heller, and Carl Cox rode the wave, and then the rave explosion that followed to global success. So now we have a movement that started in Chicago, the record started reaching the UK, and its own movement was created within the UK. But the seeds were sown earlier. Obviously, we covered that the inception of the house movement had parallels in different places. For example, Chicago and Detroit, and they were all influencing each other to many degrees. So the seeds were sown earlier, both in the underground and the mainstream. Proto house and the early house reached pockets of the soul, electro, and breakdance movement, alternative and gay club scenes in the UK, and DJs like Mark Moore, Colin Faber, and Paul Anderson in London, Greg Wilson, Graham Park, and Mike Pickering at the Hacienda in Manchester, Winston and Parrott at Jive Turkey in Sheffield, among many, many others. So Frankie Knuckles, who is accredited to be like the godfather of house, held a summer residency at a mixed gay club called Heaven in 1987. And not only did Chicago tunes start hitting the charts in 1986, but British experiments like MARRS with Pump Up the Volume did too in 1987. As acid hit, so the charts were flooded with the likes of Coldcut, Bebop, Adamski, Orbital, 808 State, and Moore's X Express with Theme from S Express. Meanwhile, artists like Baby Ford, a guy called Gerald, and So Lil So affiliated Warriors dance label with tracks like the truly remarkable Bang Bang Your Mind brought in the psychedelic, electro, and reggae sound system influences, and they were getting played in Chicago, New York, and Detroit, which helped lay the groundwork for UK's unique proliferation of genres as the 90s dawned. So these were the biggest places in to have a development, sort of a parallel development and an independent development to a certain degree throughout the world. And now we're going to go a little bit into the neat and grit of the genres. So cheers. What do you, before we go into that, what has been your connection with electronic music? Anything you like especially, or just what
Yeah,
has been your experience, Isa?
I like David Guetta. David Guetta is like kind of the electronic music of the age right now. So, um, pretty much all his kind of collaborations with other artists, it's really good stuff. In my opinion, I really like that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
electronic music. I liked from the '90s. They had this, and he actually did a cover of it. Hadaway's "What Is Love." That's a great electronic piece too. So I love it, like electronic music. I think it's really great, and it's fun.
Yeah, and for tastes, you have the wide range of colors, but yeah, David Guetta's like not my cup of tea. I like more of the underground sound, more of like basement music. It's David Guetta's a little bit too mainstream for me, but yeah, I
But do
mean
you think
you
you could
can.
get down with it? Could you get down with some David Guetta if it's being played?
No, I don't think so. Typically, the places that I go to, it never gets played. In the here in the scene, we call that specific subgenre, we call it EDM, and it has a really negative connotation. We like more of the house. It's too pop for us down here. It never caught on. I've never gone out and heard David Guetta at a party like ever. And I've been going to parties since 2015. So it's been a while, almost 10 years. Next year is going to be 10 years. Wow. But yeah, I like more of underground music scene, which the underground has also become mainstream, but kind of on a different level. So it gets really murky because now, for example, my preferred genre is tech house, and tech has gone mainstream. So it's difficult to stick to the underground when something is mainstream. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, but this is I don't know. It's always about I don't. It's always about personal preference, right? I don't deny that he has been great, that he has had amazing success. He's probably good at producing and good at DJing and everything, but it's just not my taste. Um, Hannah says everyone has to be unique. And Sinoch says, badass topic. Yes, we did a part one yesterday where we covered a little bit. Today we're going to continue now into the genres. So the first genre that we're going to talk about is called Deep House. And the chronicle reads as follows. House was built on rhythmic hypnosis and emotional engagement. And although Chicago's early mixdown and vinyl pressings might have been raw, like the likes of Larry Heard with tracks Can You Feel It and Marshall Jefferson with The Jungle, were bringing sophisticated musicality and bittersweet moods to their productions. Very early, uh, very early, sorry, I got lost. On the house music development, Hertz's unique atmosphere and Jefferson's love of flutes and the new age music set a template that has endured. Warm washes of sounds pads, which are, for example, when you hold a series of notes in the keyboard or in a piano or whatever, it's a sustained sound, minor keys, subtle jazz elements, and occasional softly sung or spoken vocals. Through the 90s, the sound crystallized, and perhaps more than anyone in the Detroit-Chicago team-up of Chet Damier and Ron Trent perfected it, creating a sense of endless enveloping groove on records like their epochal KMS EP of untitled tracks, Derek Carter's Sound Patrol releases like the slow-mo Rising and Falling remain amongst the most affecting house grooves ever made. Theo Parrish's Skywalking, Moody Man's Mahogany Brown, Rick Willett and the late Mike Huckabee and friends in Detroit brought ever more musicality to their sound, connecting to the Motor City long and deep soul and funk connections. Dubs of tracks like dubs of tracks by artists who had one foot in the soulful or tribal house, like Miami's Merck, New Jersey's Kerry Chandler, New York's Mood Ill Swing, with their classic Closer, and the late Angel Moraes also became important as part of the mix. DJ Pierre's wild pitch sound on Generate Power and Rise from Your Grave created a tougher, more intense deepness that was all about accumulating tension, inspiring extraordinary music from others, the likes of Express to Music and Felix the Hellcat's Fricadelica. While the piano pounding and hands in the air stuff got more attention, the underground side of the first wave of Italo House brought a whole movement of dreamy sunrise evoking grooves. Some of the best of these were collected recently by Dave Lee on the Italo House compilation. The UK spawned a set of names like A.T. Jazz, Andy Compton, and his pen label Jimster, and the late Phil Asher, who, like Parrish on Baltimore's Charisma, on Germany's sadly missed Michael Baumann, aka Jack Mater and Soul Fiction, or Frenchman Saint Germain, explored zones that overlapped into soulful house and broken beat. So the deep house movement is more of a hypnotic sound. It's more of a warm-up sound. And I'm going to take a second to explain what I mean by that. Cheers again. Oh, yeah. I saw Richie Houghton live here in Montevideo. Awesome. And Hannah asks, what about Avicii? I have the same thought as David Guetta. He's been getting more a little bit of the underground sound. He got more into the underground sound before he died, but so unfortunately he died. But I think that if he would have continued on the trend he was before he died, I might have liked them more. Keith, hello, how are you? Our good friend. So what I mean by the warm-up is that when you're making a party nowadays, the first DJ is called the warm-up DJ because he opens and starts playing when there is no one in the dance floor, and he's the one that has to start the party. So you're not going to start full-on pounding music. So the warm-up DJ's job is to get people in the door, making them start leaving their clothes. Maybe they have a drink. They get settled on the dance floor, and the job of the warm-up DJ is to hand a dance floor ready to start partying in full for the DJ that comes next. So depending on how many DJs you have. But in a typical party, let's say of 3 or 4 DJs, the warm-up DJ has the first 2 or 3 hours, then maybe comes the headliner, the people, the big name, the people that the one that everyone is going to see, and then you have the closing DJ. So those are very different jobs. The people that do that have very different roles in the party itself. So the warm-up DJ has to get people in the door. They has to get the people excited. But when you're a warm-up DJ, you need to be careful not to tire people out, because you need them to conserve their energy to dance to the headliners, and maybe it's one headliner, maybe it's two. So you need to manage the energy of the people on the dance floor. And that's a very important thing in the art of DJing. So then we will have the headliner who will play full on his hardest tracks and get the people excited, get the people dancing, and they will make transitions, they will hype up the crowd. And then you have the closing DJ. The closing DJ can also play a little bit of hard stuff, make sure to get that people flowing. But since it's the last person who's playing at the party, they can start high, but they need to lower the temperature so that people start getting ready to go home. In recent times, or there's a tradition in the electronic music of the after party. So it depends. The closing DJ can start playing really high, basically at the level of at the energy level of the headliner, and can dip a little bit. But if they know that that people are going to go to the after party, you have a lot more leeway to give them a little bit more of energy and power. And I'm sorry, I read a comment that yeah, I will explain this one later. So that's the idea. You need to know your place when you are DJing. You need to know how to keep the energy. You need to know how to read the crowd, because it happens that when you're standing in front of a place with a couple hundred, couple thousand people, if your idea of what you wanted to play that night isn't working because maybe you have never played for that crowd, you need to have another plan. You need to have a plan B just in case it doesn't work. So reading the crowd is a very important skill when you're DJing. It's not just about playing the music that you planned in your house. It's more about making sure that that collective experience of that group of people who are there to see you, if your idea is wrong, you need to be able to adapt on the fly. And that's where you can really tell the difference between a good DJ and a bad DJ. Oh. As a musician, I can say that DJs are like flat earthers. That's mean. That's mean. It's a whole art form. So is musician, but it's a different art form. I was explaining yesterday that there's many ways in which you can DJ. For example, I can just play one track with digital players. I can play vinyl. I can DJ with stuff that I'm making live with a device I showed on my video yesterday, which is called Ableton Push, that allows me to make drums on the fly. So even though I would never call myself a musician, because I'm not a musician, I'm just a DJ and a producer, there's a whole aspect of DJing that it's really work. I mean, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication to be able to read a crowd and give a good experience and give a good show. Diversion Science says, I used to play drum and bass, neuro and tech. I hated opening, love closing. Same as for me. I love the closing slot and I love the first slot of the after party. Those are my two favorite spots for DJing at a party. Okay, so we went a little bit into the deep house thing, and now we're going to talk about we're going to talk about acid house. While other subgenres have evolved over time, acid house arrived fully formed. The foundational tune Acid Tracks by DJ Pierre, Herb J, and the late Earl Spanky Smith came like a bolt from out of the blue and still sounds untouchably advanced to this day. It turned the Roland TB-303 baseline generator, an almost obsolete synth that was originally intended as a simple automated accompanist for solo musicians, into the most iconic instrument in all of dance music. A tape of the acid tracks was hammered by Ron Hardy in the Music Box in 1986 and became one of his signature tunes. Released in 1987 on Traxit, immediately set off a whole new style in Chicago. Tracks like Adonis's No Way Back, Mike Dunn's Magic Feet, Sleazy D's I've Lost Control, Tyrese Acid Over, Armando's Downfall, and Bam Bam's Where's Your Child still send shivers down a house lover's spine, but crucially are records that can demolish a dance floor as effectively now as 30 years ago. And once Chicago and the UK had their explosive chemical reaction in 1988, the sound truly became immortal. At this point, acid house also came to mean the broader British cultural explosion that became rave. But the longevity of the original warping, squelching, twisting sounds of Chicago-derived acid house has had a life completely of its own. That 303 sound, when it makes me like grind my teeth. It's so good. It's still to this day I love that sound. I even did a little bit of an homage. So if you go wherever you listen to music, you can go and search for my nickname here, Maxed, and you can. The name of the track is Rolling Acid. I love that sound. It's iconic. It's so good, and it's a little bit hard to get it right. But when you get the right acid sound, it's amazing. The sound was kept alive through the 90s and on by Germans like Air Liquid, Netherlanders like Miss Jax, who maintained strong connections with the OG Chicago producers, Chicago acid producers, and made her own great acid tracks like the Welcome to Chicago remix, or Stefan Roberts, whose acid junkies tracks like Sector 9 are enduring classics. American DJs like DJ Duke, aka Mark the 909 King, Abe Duke, Josh Wink with his inescapable higher state of consciousness, and many more besides carried the torch into the future. That was able to see Jeff Mills when I was in AMS. I haven't been able. That's one of the few that I would love to see that I still haven't been able. He doesn't come to Uruguay often, but yeah, I saw. I've seen Sven Bath. I've seen Stacy Pullen. I almost died in the dance floor. I couldn't believe what my ears were hearing. And I've seen, yeah, some of the greatest. I saw Richie Houghton. I've seen a bunch. Let me see if I can show. For those of you who don't know, when we're talking about the acid sound, we are mainly referring to this kind of sound, which is made specifically by a device called the TV303, which we mentioned earlier. So here we have a sample of what an acid sound is. This will be an acid bass, but for example, this one. It's a raunchy sound. It has really high parts and really low parts, and it makes you grind your teeth from the excitement. This is a classic acid sound.
Do you mind if I ask you a quick question?
No, of course.
Have you
Go
ever
ahead.
played Streets of Rage, the video game?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yes.
It uses music like this. If you play Streets of Rage 2, which I highly recommend, it has beats like this. I think his
Mhm.
name's Uzo Kazuro. I forget exactly what his name is, but the composer I think uses a lot of kind of house music, and it creates this sort of urban vibe because you're
Mhm.
basically police. You're like these vigilante police officers that are beating up bad guys.
Yeah.
So, but this kind of it's the same kind of snares and that acid kind of music that you're talking about. So I recommend that. Like it's a great game to revisit.
Ashton Richards says, yeah, that sounds very much like the Mega Drive sound chip. Yes, and it's all because of those old consoles and the arcades. Um, and they you make this with very simple waves. You make this with triangle waves, which are very easy, and those really not that powerful machines, it's very easy to get this kind of sound across the chips. So yeah, absolutely. Just hearing this makes me want to dance. It's amazing. It's an iconic sound, and I truly love it. All right, let's go back. Just wanted to illustrate for the people who may have not known about what the acid sound is. I read that. And well, that's it. Acid House doesn't have a need to change from Heartflow remixes of New Order and Mori Kante all the way through Calvin Harris's biggest hits. Acid lines have consistently featured in mainstream anthems, and on the underground, it's been a staple, whether from IBM adjacent tracks like Sin Theme, Electro House like Shadow Dancer, house and techno purists like Jerome Deraji, and relative newcomers like Tin Man, Funky Neven, Paranoid London. The acid sound permeates every aspect of music culture, from pop to rock. The acid sound across the music industry. And then we have now we're going to talk about a little bit of progressive house and melodic techno, which have some intersecting points. The phrase progressive house started to emerge somewhere around 1991 as a reaction against the increasing mania of hardcore rave music. Dutch and Italian producers were starting to make heavy use of tribal percussion. Uh, for example, as in the Traveler's Tribal Journey track and African Tribal Systems Badala, along with overtly psychedelic atmospheres that leaned towards the Balearic and trance aesthetics a little bit more than to the American house. In the UK, early remix like The World According to Sly and Love Child or Justin Robertson's remixing TC 1992's funky guitar, and above all, Letfield's timeless Not Forgotten helped put the style together into something recognizable, emphasizing dub-influenced bass lines, breakbeats, overlaid on four to the floor kicks and a slow to mid tempo chug. There was a definite hippie element to this. Out and out crusty festivals like Eat Static and Australasia were in the mix, and in California, Hardkiss Collective were heavily influential. The early progressive movement also launched bands like Fluke and Spooky, and the mighty Underworld, even generating some huge hits early on, notably Gat Decor's Passion and Atlantic Ocean's Waterfall. So it really took off the progressive house movement in the middle of the decade when Sasha and John Digweed, already superstars at home in the UK and making major inroads in North America, ran with it. Tracks like For What You Dream Of by Digweed as bedrock, and Sasha and the Light remix of Gus Gus Purple marked out a zone of epic structures. It was influenced by trance and breaks, but kept a house pulse and was tailor-made for vast arenas. Right, a superstar DJ culture blew up big time. From this moment on, progressive house became one of the most enduringly popular and trend-proof movements in dance music. Artists like Omid, 16B, Deep Dish, and Tomcraft, and many more launched decades-long careers off the back of this late 90s explosion. Tracks like Sasha's Expander dominated Ibiza and the rest of the clubbing world. Let's see what you're saying. What is that? What do you mean, Ashton, about these messages? I'm not sure. Diversion Science says the remix of New Order Confusion is pure 303 pleasure. That I don't remember that off the top of my head, but if it's acid, it's always acid is always a win. Then there's a few other genres like soulful house, which includes a little bit of elements from soul music and from sort of like this gospel music style from the churches and a lot of things. We have Afro house, which is an umbrella term about which encompasses more percussive house with more influence from drums from all over the world. And finally, we arrive at my personal favorite, the genre called tech house. Like the definition has changed repeatedly over the years, but it began as a distinct scene in the mid-90s London, led by all-guard acid house names like Mr. C, Eddie Richards, Terry Francis, Nathan Coles, and Laylo and Bushwacka. They were largely reacting against the increasingly pounding techno world, which we're going to talk about techno right after this. Techno world by bringing their sound back to something a bit funkier and more spacious with tracks like Night Shift, Took From Me, The Shack, and So Lonely. This sound soon underpinned London's clubbing sound, especially in the underground, first at the End, then Fabric, which of course launched with Francis as a resident. Out of this world, enduring careers were made for producers like Pure Science and Steve Lawler, while Americans like Stacy Pullen, who I saw live, it was amazing, see his remix of Ultraviolet's Union, Kenny Larkin and John Aquaviva were drawn into the orbit of the British and increasingly Ibizan clubs. In the 2000s, things became a little bit more blurry as tech house territory was squeezed by electro house on one side and minimal on the other side. But it was chunky, more groovy than both, flourishing on labels like Osgood Throat, Big Pitch Control, Get Physical, Fairlawn, Minus, tracks like Ken Block's Invasion, Mandy's Ja, Matthew Johnson Decompression, John Tejeda's Mental Jukebox, and Martin Buttrich Full Clip were distinctly tech house. And the Ibiza set from the likes of DC-10s, Circo Loco, resident Tania Vulcano, oh, Tania, were not far removed from all of this of Mr. C and Company. It was this climate that releases like Jamie Jones, Amazon, Jamie Jones also always a win, Nicole Mordaber's Dilemma, Solomon's Wellenfanger, I saw Solomon live, and Nina Kravis Pain in the Ass marked the arrival of future superstars, superstar DJs. Meanwhile, an underground scene that would become known as the Deep Tech was brewing, led by Mark Radford and his Audio Rehab label. The sound blurred the edges of tech house with UK bass with tracks like On Point and open multiracial crowds than before. All of this set the pace for a decade of massive expansion. In the 2010s. Tech house became the sound of vast events from Buenos Aires to Beijing. And of course, the super clubs in Ibiza and of the pristine beaches of Tulum. Many bass music acts like Scream and Solardo, most notably, crossed over and became huge names in the new style. Patrick Topping, with his 2014 hit Get Beastie, has gone from maybe significantly more banging and played in bigger arenas. When it emerged in London, its momentum is unstoppable. And now we have to get a little bit into some controversy. The chronicle that I'm referencing here is about house music, so they don't really have it on whether if techno is house music or not. Purists will say that techno is not house music, that techno was developed independently of house. But what this is my personal opinion. Without house, we would never. Oh, yeah, I saw that my thingy, my indicator said that my internet is bad. Yesterday happened the same thing, but I think we're good now, right? Can someone please give me a confirmation that we're okay, that we're back?
Good.
All right. So I was saying that my opinion, controversial, but okay. So there's a whole controversial conversation about whether if techno is part of house music, if techno is even related. But my personal opinion is that without house music, we would not have techno. One of the biggest techno hubs in the world was Detroit, but Detroit was also a big hub of house music. And what happened was that people like Richie Houghton and a lot of the first techno DJs and producers, they were looking for a very distinct sound. It's a harsher sound, it's a rougher sound, it's more aggressive. But without house music, I think that techno would not exist. And I've heard people say that techno is the sound of the future. I think that's it's a big statement. I think electronic music as a whole is sort of a futuristic sound. Techno is black. Yeah, maybe. But I can't remember. I don't like techno that much. It's too harsh for me. I do know that there are some tracks that I like, but I don't like really. I don't regularly go to techno parties. I don't follow the techno scene at all. But yeah, techno in its origins was black, but they were trying to get a new kind of a sound. Yes, and I do agree with this. EU Techno did evolve separately from Detroit Sounds. Yes, there, as we've said in yesterday's episode, a lot of these things have common inception points, but then have sort of a parallel development. Um, Hello, Jamie. How are you? Good to have you with us. We're exploring a little bit of the history of dance music. But yeah, again, this is my personal opinion on what techno kind of did. The harsher the better for me. I can understand that. I have a lot of friends that absolutely love techno. Not my cup of tea. I prefer more of like the grooviness and the drumness of the tech house sound. And if you see all of my productions, you'll find what I'm like, what I really like. I have a new track coming up, actually, on which I showed a little snippet yesterday. I have a new track coming up. It's releasing on April the 4th, and it's actually called Nightmare of Techno, because, and I use a sample from Eminem, that from one of his songs that goes, nobody listens to techno. And it was kind of, yeah, I've always wanted to use that sample. And then I had this idea. I used a very techno sound of a synth that moves side to side. I can show it again. No problem there. Let me load that up. But yeah, it gets it, all of this. It's murky. I'm following one chronicle, which is from Beatport, but when you start looking more and more, you start getting at different stories, and it depends really on who tells the story. Um, and Sinoch, it's actually really fascinating because a lot of people die in the hill saying that Detroit created techno, but techno in Europe really did fly a different and also equally as badass direction. Yeah, we can certainly agree on that. And let me share my screen here, make sure I share the audio. And all right, I'm going to show a snippet uh, of the breakdown and the drop of my latest track. It's coming out on April the 4th. So here we go.
Nobody listen to techno. Wake up! Wake up! Rubber should put a little makeup.
Oh my god. I haven't played this one on the dance floor yet because I got the master a couple of days ago, but I'm so excited to play this one in the dance floor.
This
So
sounds like
excited.
this totally sounds like a track from a video game. Like this could you should make music for games. Like, you know, like where they create this sort of like surreal type of presence, like in a first person shooter, like those like nostalgia games. This would be a great track, I think. And movies.
I
You know, I love this kind of music in movies, like in Blade. Have you seen Blade?
mm-hmm.
They have a lot of house music too, because like he goes into like the vampire club to like
Yeah.
get all the vampires and stuff. But this music, like it creates a lot of like ambiance and stuff. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. it's one of the things I would like to do just for the experience of working in. There's two things: working in making the music for a game, like actually composing the soundtrack for a game, and the soundtrack for a movie, and doing both, doing like track selection using music that's already existing, but also creating specially music for a scene. And for example, if you watch on Matters Now, Oth's video on the sovereign citizens. Um, I'll share the link here for you guys. But if you listen to that, I made the music for that, and I also made. It's not actually. It's not house. It's more of a hip hoppy thing. But I made the music and I made the sound effects out of the voices of the people. So I do have a lot of fun with pushing the boundaries and not just making like club music. Um, and yeah, those are two experiences that I've been trying to get some way to do a new like a game or potentially a movie. I have a friend who's a filmmaker, and she knows that if she ever wants like music, she can hit me up, but it still hasn't happened yet. But I would really love to do all of that. And wait, Tino says, sounds like the Matters Now community really knows their dance music. Yes, and that is awesome because we share a lot of interests, and the support has been awesome. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Diversion Science says, during my education, we did sound effects of a game, fun stuff. And Ashton sent a message earlier that I wanted to address. Early on, gotta keep it on 33 and 1/3, and then it's 45 time. I'm sorry, but that's not how that works. The speed, the RPMs of the vinyl records are just how the vinyl records are made. What determines you can have a record in any speed at any of those speeds. So the vinyl decks have, as you can see, I have like here, have one, and if I move, you can see I have another one like right there. The RPMs are one thing, and the speed as you play the pitch, what is regularly called the pitch, that is the slider on the side of the vinyl decks, that is what determines the actual speed. So when you're making the track, you can just choose at what speed you're going to make it, and you can choose 33 or 45, and then also choose the BPM of the record itself. So yeah, it's a little bit different there. I'm glad we could clear that up. Have you ever been to like a club scene, Isa?
Yes, I have videos. Like I do a lot of like what are those things called? Like conferences, like
Uh-huh.
workshop conferences, like leadership workshop conferences. I still am a part of this organization. Just I haven't done a lot of events. So it's called Golden Key International Honor Society, and I went to Las Vegas and Texas, and yeah, when we had fun, we would go to the club, and I love dancing. I do a lot of different kinds of dance. I do like traditional dance, like I mean I do like dances that a lot of people know, like salsa, bachata,
Oh yeah.
waltz. But I also do like South Asian dance and African dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've studied capoeira, so I love dancing and I love music. So it makes me a very bad Muslim.
Yes.
I'm a very
It's like,
satanic.
oh no, music haram.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, it's crazy. They want to take away all the good stuff. They want to get rid of music, and it's a really bad thing.
Mm.
I
I,
love music. I love dancing, and I think it's great. So
yeah, one of the things I was saying in yesterday's video is that music seems to be the one truly universal language. So you might have a different taste in music, but everyone understands, and every civilization, the one thing that we can truly say every civilization has is music, banging on drums, singing, and dancing. That seems to be the one ubiquitous thing that every single civilization has ever had, is that kind of thing. So it really resonates with me, the idea of a group of people having a collective experience, dancing to music and appreciating music. It seems to be the one true universal language. And anthropologically, I would say that as soon as we got organized and we were tribes of people trying to survive, people would go over the fire and bang on bones, bang on drums, clap their hands, sing, and it seems to be something really, really fundamental to humans. This idea of doing music and dancing and moving your body, and you can dance because you're happy, you can dance because you're sad, you can dance just to invoke the gods, you can dance to make it rain, you can dance for to stop raining. It's a powerful thing, and it really boggles my mind, the people who either don't listen to music or the people who hate dancing. It's like it's your body. It's about just moving your body and expressing your personality through your movement. It's a really powerful thing. So when we meet this, I'm going to take you to the clubs, and we're gonna
Sure.
pull
I
over,
actually
pull
have
some of the forbidden steps.
I have a funny story. I went to when I was in Texas. I went to actually a LGBTQIA club. It was a gay club, and
Mhm.
it was really fun. Like I don't have these concerns and problems that other people do. I don't see. It's about having fun and being with people. I think people are just
Mhm.
really afraid of things that they don't understand or know, and they like to condemn things that they don't that that they don't understand, and it's their loss. They lose from that, I feel.
I've DJ'd a couple of gay clubs, and the energy, the warm reception, people just lost in the music, dancing everywhere. That yeah, they've been a couple of my favorite DJing experiences. Sinox says dancing is meditation, music is medication. That's a very nice and beautiful thought. Um,
I think people are really afraid too, like particularly in religious spaces, they're terrified of music because music,
mhm.
they have to control people, and since music is a liberating force, they have to control the music. That's why I think of most of the you look at the conservative elements of all these religions, they're all the same. They want to stop music. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, the more of the most conservative spaces, any religion, they
Mhm.
want to stop music, and it's because it's not really the religion, it's the people because they're like, I want control and I want power. So if I stop music, then I have power. There's a really great game. It's a funny game by oh, what is the guy? What are they called? Who's the father of the girl from Lord of the Rings, the woman from Lord of the Rings? Liv Steven Tyler. Do you know Steven Tyler?
Yes.
What's his band called?
Oh, no, not sure. Can we get some help from the chat?
Oh, I can tell you. I just man, I forgot.
Aerosmith.
Aerosmith, yes, Aerosmith. So Aerosmith made a video game called Revolution X. Thank you. Aerosmith made a video game called Revolution X, and you have to fight like these people who want to control everybody through the power of music. So it's really fun. You throw like compact CDs and stuff, and it's like an arcade shooter, but it's really cool. So you have to check out Revolution X.
All right. We have a couple of interesting messages, and we're pretty much done for today. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Isa, for coming along. I didn't know. I mean, I know that you're multicultural and that you're open, and I didn't know that you would be so receptive to music. But that's a good thing to know. I love talking music and stuff. Ashton Richard says a fair amount of science has been thrown at the concept of what leads people to listen to bad music. My mom hates music, especially stuff she's never heard before. New music can trigger people that suffer from fear of missing out. And regarding what Isa said about some religious thoughts trying to move people away from music, there is a double standard there, because there are, at the same time that they say, oh, you should stay away from rap music, it's from the devil and stuff. And there was a time when even classical music was considered bad, that it was considered you shouldn't listen to this. But then you have the people at the church who use the power of music to for that exaltation. So they will have the choir and the whole church singing, and they acknowledge the power of that, but they want you to only stick within the bubble of our music. They don't want you to go and experience the same things, the same sensations that you would experience in church in other places. And that is specifically more of like the gospel scene in the churches. But there's a double think there of acknowledging the power of music and using it, but trying to get people from finding that somewhere else. And Keith, I would like to address this. He was talking to Sino and says, electronic music is definitely broad, but I can play the same sounds on my keyboard. Mostly my thoughts focus on the timing. Once a timing is set in a computer, it doesn't float within it. That is correct. But when you become a producer and you are making a track, there are ways in which you can actually do these things so that the timing is not perfect. You can humanize the music when you're making it on a computer so that it doesn't sound as robotic as what is happening, what tends to happen if you are using a computer. So it's a valid point, but good producers will actually introduce some of these quote unquote errors, or will move things out of time so that you can have a track get a bit of more of a human feel. It's called humanization. And yeah, it's something, one of the last things you learn as you are learning to make music is how to make it sound more human and not so much robotic. But it's a good point. Thank you for bringing it up. All right. Anything else you would like to tell our folks at the audience? Isa, any final thoughts?
I think what I want to share is that the power of music is beautiful. It's wonderful, and we should learn the history of it. I actually took a class. I'm a part of a music fraternity too, so music is just like a big thing. I was talking about in one place where I was talking about how Orpheus is a very important figure in my life and understanding, because he uses music as a defensive mechanism. Like it actually literally manifests to support him. And I thought about even how music evolved. I was studying about like the ancient roots of classical music and its roots into into the Beatles and stuff. Like I took a Udemy course on it, and it was just so amazing. I just think music is such a powerful, beautiful thing that we have to have in our lives. You know, for some of the folks here who might be atheists and don't believe in religion, you can see that as sort of like even a metaphor of the soul. Like music is the soul, you know. So I think that's an important thing. It's our lifeline, and it connects us all. So I think music is beautiful, and we need to cherish it and do some more because we should talk about the history of other kinds of music too. We can look into rock and roll.
Yeah.
We could look into jazz. We can look into rock, heavy metal. I think it'd be super cool to do like a series just on all kinds of genre of music, you know?
Yeah, that would be definitely very interesting. It came out of this one came out of the blue because it's something that I know I've studied it before, but yes, it's I didn't know that we would have so many music heads in the audience, which was it's also very nice. And yeah, I think we can do a little mini series on music. We even talked about Orpheus on our Tell Me That Story show. It's a very interesting story, the one of Orpheus. Do you remember that one?
I do. That's what we were talking about that. And
Yeah.
that's why I brought up. I love Orpheus and I mean, it's a tragic story, but it's a powerful story. And it shows the power of music. He's kind of the first sort of hero of music that we can see in a lot of the history where he uses music as a tool to protect him. And it's such a cool kind of metaphor, and it's
Yeah.
like, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, like you have the bard class and they use music, you
Yeah.
know, as a tool that, supports and defends. And I just think it's amazing.
And he used to calm the beast, and even he would even make the trees dance. Orpheus story, it's fantastic. And when it comes out to music, my life changed the moment that I discovered. I still remember it very vividly, going to my first electronic music party in December 2014. And as I walked in, it was a massive party at a 3-story like sort of mansion thing. And as I walked into the dance floor, I said, "Ah, this is my place." And I started dancing, and I danced all night until I went home. It was amazing, and that took me on a journey of just in finding a new world that I hadn't discovered in Uruguay, that was kind of hidden, because when I started going to parties, it wasn't that well known. It was sort of a kind of kept hush hush. That party didn't even have any international DJs. They were all local DJs. And now it has become like a really big thing. And it changed my life getting to know music. Then in 2018, I started producing because DJing kind of took me into that. I maybe what I want to make my own music also. So then, it has been an amazing journey, and I'm super glad to have the chance to share it with all of you. And we'll definitely look into starting a new series. And when it comes to the story of music, I remember something that is very fresh on my mind is this idea of people trying to bring music down. And the example that I always bring up is when people accuse Niccolo Paganini, who was a very, very good violinist. Uh, they accuse him of selling his soul to the devil, and that's a really funny thought. Like, he was so good at playing the violin that people were saying that he had sold his soul to the devil to be a good violinist. And that's really funny. And we might do the story of Niccolo Paganini at some point in the Tell Me That Story show, because it's a really good one.
Oh, I wanted to
But
say one thing else too.
yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking about the crossroads. They were saying that with blues and jazz, that you go to the crossroads and you make a deal with the devil. And I think it's such a bizarre thing because, again, it seems like manipulators who want to control people. They have to bring the devil in. What does the devil have to do with music? Nothing. But what it is it's people in power who want to control people, and they're terrified of their opposition, people who, can rival them in power. So they have to say, well, it has to be demonic, which I find to be really disgusting and gross stuff.
Ashton asked me, how are access to instruments in Uruguay? Really, really expensive, my friend. Really expensive. But we do what we can. Yeah, gear in Uruguay, the market is so small that it's hard to import, and Uruguay has like a 50% tax on tech. So let's say something costs $1,000 in the US, just for bringing it over to the country, you get charged 50% tax on that, and then you add the retail price, it ends up costing 1750 it's insane, really. Jimmy Tax says, like because bow ties are cool. Yes, please. And Ashton wonders, 50% tax? Yes, 50% tax on tech. So a synth costs about 2,000, depending on the model, right? But a Moog costs about $3,000. It's insane. All right, and with that, thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to leave you the link so you can check out part number 1 of this show that we did yesterday. And if we don't have anything up, we'll weave around some of this history of music videos, because they're pretty interesting, and they open the door for some very, very nice conversations. Here you go. That's the link to part 1 that I did yesterday. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Isa, for joining me today, and we'll catch you on the following shows that matters now. This week on the Tell Me That Story show, we are doing pirates, one of my favorite subjects. I'm going to show you my pirate tattoo, and we're going to talk about a couple of the best pirates and a couple of the worst pirates that we've had. Thank you so much for being here, and we are on our way. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Isa.